Okay, so we'll get started in a minute or so. Thanks for joining us. Everybody's doing good. Okay, all right. So my name's Andy Fedak. I am associate professor in game art, animation, immersive media, and I'm going to talk about our different BFAs and then also the portfolio reviews that we'll be doing and later in October or early in October. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about all this stuff. Some of you I've met before, some of you probably haven't had me in any classes yet, but we appreciate your interest in the programs, and yeah, we're excited. So I think it'd be good also to introduce the other faculty. So Kathy, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kathy Bauer, and this is my second year at Cal State Fullerton, and I'm the area lead for entertainment art and animation.
Nicole, do you want to go?
Yeah, hi, I'm Nicole Yang, and I teach in the illustration department. I teach special studies and some of the other senior classes, and I've been here for 9 years, and I will be reviewing the illustration portfolios in October.
Cool. And then Eric?
And I'm Eric Carpenter. I'm assistant professor in game. Like Kathy, it's my second year at Cal State Fullerton as a professor. I was a student a long time ago.
Awesome. All right. So we got awesome people that I'm going to talk about the portfolios today and then hopefully answer your questions. Feel free to post questions in the chat and we'll try and get to them and then also answer them as they pop in. And we've got basically 2 hours. I've kind of blocked out for this. Hopefully it won't take 2 hours, but we're here to help y'all kind of understand what the process is and kind of give you an overview of everything. Okay, so just to start off, I'm going to just go over just the way the process works and the classes you need to have before you apply to the program. So I'm just going to share my screen really quick. Okay, so I'll start with EAA. So when you start at, and I apologize if this is something you might already know, but I think it's good to review because I think a lot of students can get confused with just the requirements and everything. So when you start at Fullerton, if you transfer in or if you are been here the whole time, you always come in as a studio art major. So that's a BA. And then you get to a point where you apply to a BFA if you want to, so a Bachelor of Fine Arts. And then we have different programs that you can apply to. Some of them have portfolio reviews and some of them don't. All the programs that we're going to talk about today are portfolio reviews are required for them. And the reason why we have that is because we have so many students that are interested in our programs. We want to make sure, one, that we can provide the classrooms and the classes that you can take if you get into the programs, and then also make sure that you're prepared for what we're going to teach you. And so we would love to teach as many students as we can, but because we have so much interest, and which is a good thing, but we also have a limit in the space we have available to us. And so this process is where that kind of comes out of. So the first program I'm going to talk about is EAA. So basically, if you go onto our catalog, they list out the different programs. So I'll just read the text here. So the Bachelor of Fine Arts degree is a professional program providing directed studies in 8 studio concentrations within the visual arts. The program is designed students seeking in-depth preparation, specialized goals selected from one of the following areas: ceramics, creative photography, experimental media, drawing and painting, entertainment art, graphic design, and interactive design, illustration, jewelry, and media, metals, and sculpture. So these are all the kind of directions that you can kind of go into as you go. And then when you do that, the requirements in that, just to do the BFA are all the same for each area. So at the lower division, there's a core requirement. And those core classes are listed here. So this 103, 104, 107A and B, 117, 201A, 201B, and then at the upper division, there's requirements too that are core, which is the same for all the different programs, which are Art 300, which is writing for the visual arts. And then there's 6 units of upper division art history electives, and then 6 or 9 units or 3 classes of upper division studio art electives. So all the programs I'm going to talk about, so illustration, EAA, and game, they all have this same kind of core requirement. All right. A couple things, when you're going to apply to the actual programs, you need to have 103, 104, 107A and B all done with a 3.0 or better average, right? So what that means is if you look at your TDA and you say, for example, you have like a D in one of them, you need to have had a higher grade than that. You need to have higher than a C-, and then you also needed the average of them all to be above a 3. Additionally, you would need 117 done as well, which is the life drawing class here. Once you have all those classes done, then you can apply to a BFA program, to the BFA program. And you have to have them, you can't be like in the class. You basically, you have to have the grade done for you to apply. Okay. Now, sometimes there's tension for students when, for example, they're a transfer and they might have units be getting to our cap, which is, I think, 96 right now. And that's something that we can waive as long as you're going to apply, the next kind of go around, so I know a lot of students get stressed out about that, but it's just important that you don't wait for a long time to apply to the major, because you want to get into the major as soon as you can, because there'll be classes which will be blocked from you unless you are in the BFA program for the particular program that you're interested in. Okay, so at the for EAA has a specific focus, right? So entertainment, art, and animation concentration develops students' individual voices and practical expertise through progression of courses centered on animation pre-production and production using both traditional animation and digital tool sets. The program's course of study focus on skill building in animation and storytelling through the language of film, while encouraging students to explore unique and personal expressions in diverse and collaborative settings. It offers an intensive hands-on art-making experience combined with a broad exposure to fine arts that prepare students of a lifetime of creative work, problem-solving, and critical thinking. Okay, so here it's basically, that's the kind of focus that in that particular BFA. And then here's what I just talked about earlier, where you need to have 103, 104, 107A and B done, and then 117. And then the scary part, I think, for a lot of students is this 96 units. So that all that means is that we want to keep you applying when you're ready, right? Once you get these done, we want you to jump into it. And then for each program, there's the core, right, that all the programs have to do. And then there's the core of in EAA, what you do specific for that program. So at the lower division, you have 217, which is life drawing and animation, and then 253A, principles of animation. And then the core concentration requirements are 317A, life studies and drawing, 318A, drawing and painting heads and hands, animal and wildlife drawing, and then pre-production and production, and then intermediate animation, 4070 special studies, and then special studies storyboarding, and then there's 3 units of upper division studio elective. And then one note, I was talking to Kathy earlier, this is kind of confusing, we're working to fix it, is that you need to take 47E right now twice, or you can take a new class, which is 47H, which is our special studies in character design, I think, for animation, instead of the second 47E. But we're working to have that clear so you won't have to, get confused about it. But anything, all this stuff, if you get confused, just, let us know. You can meet with us or email us and we can kind of explain it to you. Now there's other like electives here, and these are basically what fits into the elective options here. So there's one here that you can pick elective at the upper division. And then here you can do 3 more. So there's 4 total upper division electives. And then there's the 6 units, which is again, it's 2 classes of the upper division art history. And then there's 6 units of the lower division electives too, right? And so basically that gives you some freedom to pick classes in other areas. And what's also nice is the way these particular 3 programs are really interconnected, is that if you're an illustration major, you can do your electives in EAA or in game. And so you can move between those once you're into past the portfolio review of any of those programs. You still have to understand that you need to have the prereqs for those, prereqs for those classes. So for example, if we look at 353A, that has a bunch of prereqs. So 253T and 253A, 253B, or 255 or 255B. So when you see that or, all that means is that any of those classes, plus being either entertainment art, computer animation, and game art, which is the game program is the new name for it, or illustration, and then you could take that class. So just understand that with the electives, that when you're taking your classes, you want to have that in your head if you want to later take an upper division class. But it's a nice thing to understand, that you can kind of move between those areas, right? That's what makes our program really powerful, is that I think a lot of illustrators are interested in, say, for example, storyboarding, or a lot of game art majors might be interested in doing more character animation. So there's a lot of overlap there, which makes it so cool. Okay, so that's the overall program for EAA. We won't get into the specifics of like every little class, but you can do research and look into this. And then I know PMC and CGraph and IA, I think, might be doing later talks about specific more to answer more questions. And we can also get into more detail with you later if you have questions too. Okay, so that's the EAA kind of flow. Once you are done with the 107, the 4 core, 103, 104, 107 A and B, and 117, with the 3.0 or above, then you apply to the program. Okay. Now let me stop the share for a second. I can show you the portfolio review for that just for a second, because I'm gonna Kathy's actually going to do this part of it in a second. But basically, or here's the game example, but then there's a portfolio review that you're going to go through, and we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so just so you understand, that's how the flow works. You get those done, then you can do this. But I want to talk about the other 2 programs just really quickly so you understand the differences between them. So
Andy, do you want me to put those in the chat?
oh, sure, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, all right. So the other program is game. So if you notice, it's the exact same core stuff. So we've already basically kind of talked about that stuff. Where it gets different is the requirements and the focus that the upper division and the lower division required for that particular program. So just to kind of go over this one. So the game art animation immersive media concentration provides a comprehensive and rigorous focus in the growing fields of games and 3D computer animation, including emerging technologies in virtual, augmented, and mixed reality, as well as data-driven 3D visualization, dynamics, and particle effects. The program offers students a sequencing of curriculum enriched by a collaborative learning environment. Okay, so the admission requirements for the portfolio is same again. You have to have 103, 104, 107 A and B, and 117. So it's the exact same thing. But once you're into the program, the requirements are going to be different from EAA. So if you look at the EAA one, here, the lower div requirements are 217 and 253, 253A. For EA, for game, it's introduction to 3D modeling, 255A, and 255B is Introduction to 3D Animation. You don't have to have these classes done. And this is a question that'll probably come up. You can do these classes if you want to before you do the portfolio and then show the work, but you don't have to have them done to apply to the program. Okay, so sometimes students are like, oh, do I need to take those lower div classes? It's up to you, and depending on it's up to really you and your schedule, how that kind of works out. And then at the upper division requirements, ours require 317A, life studies, sculpting life forms, and then the 3D series, which is 355A, B, and C, 3D character modeling, environment modeling, and rigging, and then 455B, C, and D, which is lighting and look development, 3D team production, and then the capstone and game art, animation, and immersive media. And then finally, we also have a video art and moving image class. Just like EAA, we have upper division art electives. So we have 4 that you can do. There's 3 here, and then just like before, and then there's 1 here. So again, you could take in those electives, you can kind of take classes in these other areas, right? But you of course, you still have to have the prereqs for it. But it's important to kind of think of that as you go, and then set up an appointment with one of us if you need guidance about what your interests are within these fields, and then maybe figuring out the right kind of course of study, right? Okay, all right, cool. So that's the game, and then finally, illustration. So again, it's the same core, right? And then same requirements, except when you get to the concentration, which is the illustration concentration provides students with the conceptual understanding, technical skills, and practical experience to become effective and creative communicators and visual storytellers in the field of illustration. And then at the lower division, 217, life drawing for animation. So that one's the same as EAA. And then instead of 253T, it requires 263, which is perspective drawing. So you might kind of see here, like, maybe if you're interested in drawing, maybe you would, as an EAA student, you might take 263 as one of your electives. So that might be a good thing to think about if you're interested in that, right? And then at the upper division, and if you hear that term like lower division, upper division, all that is 100 and 200 are considered lower division, and then 300, 400 are considered upper division. Most community colleges are teaching 100, 200 level classes. So there's some that might do upper division, but most of them are going to be lower. And then universities generally will do the full gamut. Okay, so in the concentration, we have life studies, drawing, and then 318A, drawing, painting heads and hands, 337, animal wildlife drawing. So these are similar between EAA and illustration. And then it gets different. So 363A is illustration. 363B is there's actually the name is a little bit clearer. So this one, 363A is storybook, magazine, and film illustration. 363B is computer aided illustration, so getting into Photoshop. And then 363 is digital narrative illustration. So this is digital painting programs and techniques. And then finally, at the upper division, the 400 level, it's 43B, visual development and background painting, special studies in illustration, children's book illustration, and then internship. Internship, just while we're at this point, like internship is a really useful thing to have, but it's something that you need to find an internship. So if you're an illustration student, it's important to kind of think about that as you're getting farther along in the process in your time here at Fullerton. And then also plenty of game students do illustration or do internships in the industry, same with EAA. So it's definitely things that students do, but you have to kind of make your own luck by really pounding the pavement, creating a LinkedIn, going to Lightbox, going to SIGGRAPH, all those different events where you can meet people and get to know kind of the lay of the land as well. Okay, so those are the 3 programs. Eric, is there any kind of questions in the chat that we need to answer, or are we okay for right now?
None so far.
Okay, all right, great. Cool. So, and we can, in the Q&A later, we can talk more about this stuff, but I just want to understand y'all the process. And then also know that you can apply to all 3 and then pick which one you like. I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you're actually interested in taking, doing the program, but that's an option. You can double major. I generally don't think it's the best idea just because you'll be here for such a long time, and that we have really great, we've set up really great elective options for students so they can, jump and take a class in the other areas. So I think the best mode is to pick the one that's the best fit of, for sure you want to do, and then you take classes in the other areas in your electives based on your interest, and that way you kind of get the best of both worlds without going crazy and taking, like not every illustrator wants to do an animation, but they definitely maybe want to learn about storyboarding, or they definitely want to learn about character design, right? Same thing for animators, same thing for game students. Okay, all right, so
And you had a couple questions coming.
okay, cool. Yeah, let me stop the share. We'll answer these specific ones. Okay, all right, let's see. All right, so would you recommend doing internships junior year or senior year? I personally, I think doing an internship, if you get an internship, you should do it. I think maybe, I don't know if any of y'all have any suggestions on that, the other hosts here, but I think for me, it's it's kind of a precious thing, so it might be great to do it. You generally, the farther you're here, you might have better opportunity because your portfolio might be better, but I don't know. What does everybody else think?
Yeah, I agree. If you get it, you should do it. I see so many students wait until the very end, and then they really struggle because now it's they need it to graduate, and they run into a lot of issues. So if you get it, that's an excellent opportunity. I wouldn't put it off. Having said that, it's a good point. Your work is not as advanced junior year, and there's something to be said about waiting, until senior year until you're a little bit better. So yeah, both. Do both. Do one every year.
Yeah, totally. Perfect.
I agree. Try this as soon as you can, and don't wait. Not here, but where I worked before. Too many students wait until the last minute and struggle to find internships.
Mhm.
I agree. Everything that's been said.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I think also for game, there's a really great website for the game. It's called Game Dev Map, and it has a list of a lot of studios that you can find that might be smaller, and then thinking in a a little bit out of the box, where it's everybody wants to get an internship at Riot or Blizzard and Pixar and all that, and we've had students do that, but I think also sometimes you can have a great experience at a smaller studio for any of these areas, so maybe think a little bit more out of the box there. Okay, all right, so let's see okay, so could you go over the portfolio submission process when it becomes relevant? I tried looking for where to submit, so knew when it was, but I didn't see any options to match the instruction said. So basically it should be on your portal, and there should be an email that has the instructions kind of laid out for you. I'll talk to the chair and the office to make sure that's gone out and it's clear. But we're not going to go through specifics on the actual technical side of the process because we don't have access to that. But it should be pretty clear. But of course, if you have trouble at any time, just let us know as we get closer to it. It might just be they haven't, because it's not for another couple weeks. They might not have turned it on yet. So you might just need to sit tight for a week or two. And then Hannah said, do I need to do all the required general ed art classes first before I apply for my desired program? So you don't, and that's usually good not to. The GE classes, okay, so one thing that students run into is they take all studio classes, because they run out of GEs, and they'll have 5 studio classes. And it seems on paper, oh, this would be a lot of fun. This is what I want to do. But the problem is when you're a studio artist and you really care about your work, you're going to work your butt off on all of them. And you're gonna, it's just the amount of time you put into it because you care about it, will kind of go overboard. And so I think it's good to kind of pace yourself with the GEs so you can pop them in there as you go. Same thing with art history. I teach art, like an art history class, and it's a different vibe, it's a different part of your brain, and I think it's good to mix them in. And that's kind of my take. I don't know if what everybody else thinks. Anybody else, any other comments on that one?
Yeah, I'm seeing students struggling when they have a lot of studio art classes at the same time. So yeah, mixing it up, I think, is a good idea.
Okay. All right. So
Some of your non-studio classes as you go through.
what's that?
I said I wholeheartedly agree. You need to hold on to some non-studio classes as you go through, so you're not sitting your senior year or your last semester or your last year or whatever it may be with 5 studio classes stressing out the entire.
Yeah. It's just, you get burned out, and it's sad because, like, you can just overdo it, and anything in life that you care about can make lame if you overdo it. You know what I mean? I've been really into pickleball, and I've managed to hurt myself, so I'm doing it too much, so I think it's something to think about. Okay, so then let's see here. I'm asking for one of my younger friends who can't make it today. What if your GPA is lower than the requirement? Would I still get in if my art qualifies for game art? So I'm guessing, so the GPA, so there's your GPA, and then there's the requirement for the portfolio review GPAs, which is the 103, the 104, 107 A and B. That one has to be above a 3. The GPA doesn't matter as is like, it's something we can look at and be like, oh, that's really low. What's going on there? But the one that really matters is required hard requirement is that those classes, that GPA has to be above it. So if you look at on your TDA, it'll actually list out what the GPA is for those classes. If your friend is confused about that, they can just email me directly, and I can go over it with them. And then there's ways also, just like where you could retake a class here or at another community college and have that replace the class to bump up. So sometimes students will have like a low grade in one and then a higher grade, and then they'll replace it, and I can sometimes get it above 3. Okay, and then Kelly says, how many tries do we get? You get 2 attempts. Oh, thanks, Eric. You already answered it. Dummy. Okay, okay, thank you. And then Ava, should I apply for both illustration and EA and see if I get into one? If I get into both, could I just choose to do the one I am leaning towards more? I know you said double majoring might be a lot. Yeah, it's up to you. It's just more work. It's, you got to go and apply and put everything together. Sometimes, it's really up to you, Ava. I think that's a valid way of doing it. So just be aware of that. I wouldn't, I think if you know which one you want to do, like maybe do the one you really like, and then later, if you didn't get in your first time, you could maybe spread out a little bit more. Maybe that's a better way to kind of pause on that and then think of it as your second time you apply. And then Brooklyn says, is the October deadline for the portfolio to begin the process, as in to create your portfolio, or is it when you have a portfolio ready to be reviewed? So that's when it's due. So you want to put together your PDF. Oh yeah, Eric answered it, sorry. So yeah, basically that's when you have to turn it in. And then Hansi, can you talk about the class assessment for illustration major? Yes, Nicole's going to go over it in a bit. And then looks like Nicole answered the next one. And then, okay, then Christina said, trying to make sure, does it necessarily matter if the internship is strictly aligned with the concentration? For example, an internship in gallery as game entertainment student. I don't know. Nicole, do you have the answer for that one?
I don't have a hard answer for that one, because I know that Laura Neal, has specific advice that she likes to give for that. So on that note, I would recommend talking to Laura. Asking me personally, of course, your internship should really align with the career that you want post-grad. So, I mean, that's my official answer, that what you're, otherwise, it seems like it's a rather waste of your time and also an opportunity for somebody else. So that's what I would say. I would recommend you find something that will help you in your field of interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And then art styles. Okay, I think we'll talk about that when we get into, and then Nicole can expand on what she said. And when we go over the portfolio stuff. Then Diana, if you reach the unit limit, does that mean you can't apply for the portfolio anymore? So that's what I was saying earlier. As long as you are going to apply, you know, once you've reached it, like your next, when you can, then we generally waive it. It's really meant for students that sometimes some students want to stay at Fullerton forever, you know, and so it's really for that when it's exploited. But you know, for as long as you're ready to apply when you get to that point, then you'd be fine. How likely is your portfolio? How is 50-50, or is it really just matters about your work? Oh, yeah, I mean, you know, Nicole answered this already, but you know, it's the percentages, I think, is maybe you're asking, like, it really, we have to, there's a certain amount the university lets us into the programs. And so it depends on how many people apply. So that percentage can change based on room availability and then classroom availability and all that kind of stuff. But you're, yeah, at the end of the day, the quality of your work is the most important thing. And then Doric has, hi, I'm a transfer student and this is my first semester here. I have taken all the prerequisite courses except 107B. Okay, and okay, you've been completely great. Yeah, Nicole answered that one. And then it's like Reza, okay. And then I'm also a transfer and I've been here for, oh, it looks like Nicole is on it. Got
Sorry.
that.
You caught up with me.
Okay, I'll go down to the bottom and then you can go back. I'm a transfer student and I finished all my lower division art classes. However, on my Titan audit, it says I have 117 incomplete, but I have my CC to prove that I did it. So what you need to do is you need to meet with one of us and have us email the Leslie Skinner to make it count, to move it in the right spot. So that's let's see, CC. So CC, just set up an appointment with one of us, and if you have trouble doing that, just email me and that can help move it into the right spot. And then Reza, after submitting your application on October 2nd, when will we know when we are accepted or not? Usually it's, you know, we try and do the turnaround pretty quick. I'd say, like, you know, hopefully like a week, but it might be 2 weeks, might be a little longer. It just depends on how many people we get, but we'll try and get it turned around pretty quickly. Okay, then just to clarify, I'm currently a freshman. I won't have all my courses completed by the day the portfolio is due. So I would wait till I've completed all the courses. Yep. So L'Oreal, you just need to get all the requirements done and then you can apply. So generally it's sophomores. Sophomores are going to be applying, and then juniors, like rising juniors. Okay, sure. And then the Shelley, I have a high schooler interested in attending your school for animation. 2 questions. 1, rather than take their first year prerequisite art classes at Fullerton, is it possible to do those courses at a JC and apply for the portfolio review as a transfer student? You have to be at Fullerton to apply. So you can take the classes, but you can't apply till after you're here. So you have to be here to apply. So you need to be a student. If it is possible to take the prerequisite classes somewhere else, will it put my kid at a disadvantage for not having attended the first year Fullerton regardless of the quality of the portfolio? Meaning, no, there's no priority given to Fullerton students. We do see there's, like, you know, like different community colleges have different levels of teaching, so we can't guarantee like the quality of the classes. You know, like here we have certain processes that we have in place to make sure like the professors are good teachers, and we work through it. Sometimes we have to really grind on it, but I think there's plenty of great schools where you can CCs, like Fullerton College is awesome, IBC, there's a bunch. So I saw the applications can be done in the spring as well. Does that mean I can wait to refine my portfolio to then, or do I have to apply as soon as possible? I'm a transfer student, JR. So you can apply every semester. So you can apply in the fall and the spring. I think if you have the requirements done, it's good to apply, because that process is something that you're going to run out of classes to take, but I can't force you to apply. But if, say, for example, you're below the target unit count, it's good to do that just because that's the requirement and we want you to apply, so it's kind of putting me in a difficult position. And I think also it's good to go through the process, it's good to do that process. Okay. Okay, all right. So I think for now, so for the game animation concentration, the career doesn't have to be limited strictly to games, right? Like, can still be acquired and used in other careers such as animation, movies, CGI, and advertising. Yeah, so we see students kind of go in different directions. So for example, like, if you wanted to do, immersive, or if you wanted to do advertisement, students have done that. It's just kind of, game art, animation, immersive media is kind of broad. And then, particularly for animation, we don't really focus in on character animation as much as, say, EAA. So if that was something you're interested in doing, you could take our classes and then do your electives in EAA. Or if you're more kind of animation centric and you want to have some 3D, you could reverse it and do EAA and take 3D classes, more 3D classes in game, so it's really kind of broad. All right, so okay, in terms of portfolio, what are you looking for in quality work? So we'll talk about in a second. I had taken 3D intro to animation, but I lost some of the work due to corrupted laptop. I got in great grades for it, but have been remaking. I would need to meet with the categorized to review them. Grades. But have been, yeah, I mean, you don't have to meet with us. If you feel that it's a good representation of where you're at, then, then I would just put it in there. And then Dakota Ray asks, when will the portfolio rulings open under scholarships? That was asked earlier. So I think hopefully like within a week or two. It's October 2nd, I think, is the one for game and EAA. So is when it's actually due. So my guess is it'll probably be in the next couple weeks. And then about how long is the application process? So basically it's putting together the PDF is the long part. So just be aware of that, Kylie. I think for illustration, it's you have to do an in-person part of it. So we'll talk about, Nicole will talk about that in a few minutes. I'm 103 units and I just finished one class that was required. And we still apply for the program. Yes, Vicky, like I was saying earlier, as long as that you're going to apply the next time around, then we're cool with it. So just make sure you do that and then you'll be fine. And then Kelly says, if you fail twice, can I still do animation class? I'm just checking for safety backups. So if you fail twice, so basically each of these programs you can apply to twice, and then you have to move on to a different program. So sometimes EAA student, like maybe a student doesn't get an EAA, they might take illustration, and then you can then take an animation class as an elective. Or you might do game, you might take an animation class as an elective. If you don't get into any of those, so for example, you apply to twice to all of them, and then you don't get in, the block is going to be where you can't get into the animation classes that are at the upper division. So it's just to be aware of that, the process. So that's where you wouldn't be able to take the upper division animation classes, Kelly. And then Gabby. Okay, yeah. I'm a transfer student within my current major, studio art. I received notification on my student account saying I'm ready to graduate, but I would sometimes it's I applied for the program and got accepted. Would I be graduating with animation degree and general studio degree? So you would be getting, so you got in, you'd be getting a BFA. And then if you're over it, it depends on your history, like your TDA. Sometimes students had a long history and the transcript's got a bunch of stuff. So I think I'm okay with it as long as it makes sense, you know, but I would meet with one of us just to kind of talk to you about it if it's way over, you know, but to me, it sounds like you probably just need to apply and get into the system. Young Sun, if I had not took life drawing class, but I've taken it this semester, I can only apply next one, right? But I have almost 96 units, so I need to do not take any class next semester. I'm concerned. So you just need to get, I think this is what you're saying. So basically you need to get all the required classes done. So 107 A and B, 103, 103, 104, and 117. And then you can apply. So you need to get those out of the way. If you go over the unit cap because you're a transfer, it's okay. Just make sure you apply once you get everything done. Just an intrusive thought, but if you couldn't get into both majors, EAA or CAGA, would you just graduate with a BA or would you be booted from CSUF? No, you wouldn't be booted. You would just do the studio art, the BA. How long does the review process take after all the portfolios have been submitted? So yeah, it's like two weeks, I would say, you know, hopefully faster. And Kathy answered, yeah, okay, Kathy talked about that one. Okay, so I want to keep on moving. We're 45 minutes in, so I want to get into the portfolio stuff. So keep on asking questions, and we'll try and answer them at the end, or the host or co-host will try and answer them as we're going. Okay, all right. So let me share my screen. So I'll talk about the game one, and then Kathy's going to talk about EAA. Or actually, Kathy, do you want to talk about EAA so I can get a break? If that's okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
All
Absolutely. Right. So one of the biggest things we're looking at is solid life drawing. There's different sections for the EAA portfolio. There's the life drawing section, observational drawing section, and creative expression section. But one of the things I emphasize about the figure drawing aspect is that we're looking at thought process. Somebody did ask about thought process and drawing very specifically for animation, which I would call the constructive approach. So I have a book that I refer to by Glenn Vilppu, GLENN VILPPU. This is the Vilppu Drawing Manual. And in the Vilppu Drawing Manual, it shows examples of what I'm talking about, construction drawing. So you'll be building in your life drawing, you should be building on really simple forms. See, here's an example. You can see how like very simple forms, and we're seeing through the forms. This is thought process. We're, you know, even though we can see anatomy, like over on this one, we see a lot of anatomy, but we're starting really simple with like the rib cage is like an egg shape. The pelvis is like a box shape. The head is even like a box shape here. So I would recommend for you guys who are interested, and when you're applying for the EAA major, I'm thinking about your life also outside of Fullerton after you graduate. And for a career in animation and working as a person who draws in animation, it's really important to understand these principles of like weight in drawing and rhythm in the figure, flow, and this constructive approach. So I'm going to give you guys a couple names. One is Glenn Vilppu, GLENN You can Google search and see that's the kind of figure drawing you need to be doing if you're interested in animation. And another name is Carl Gnass, KARL GNASS. I think they have some tutorials and images, but we're really looking to see that you're understanding structure, how to construct the figure out of these forms and understand proportion, weight and balance. I do have an example. I can screen share an example of a portfolio that a student was accepted last year. Let me go ahead and screen share so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, So this was a student who applied, and you can see here in the figure drawings, there's a lot of understanding of structure and proportions and where the weight is, where the figure's leaning. And this, I can tell by looking at this, that this student has been doing a lot of practice. This is another question. A lot of times people will ask me, well, I took a figure drawing class. Does that make me ready? Will my portfolio be ready if I took a figure drawing class and I put drawings from my figure drawing class? Not necessarily. It's like a musician might take a violin class, or somebody might take a violin class and they'll learn what they learn in class, but it's the outside practice where someone gets really good at it. And I don't know, every year, I don't know how many people are going to be applying to the program and what the competition's going to be. So my point is, I'll encourage, oh, you know what? I'm not sharing, am I? Sorry about that, you guys. Okay. Now I'm sharing. Do you guys see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Sorry about that. I wasn't sharing. So yeah, this is the one I'm sharing. This was a student who, you can see this student has been drawing for a long time. I can see that this is a student who understands underlying form, structure, rhythm, balance, and like where the weight is, how the figure is leaning here. We're looking really simple forms, but there's good proportion. There is some anatomy here. And so the point is, what I'm trying to express is that taking a class and making drawings in one class may not mean you're going to get in. It's this practice. You know, you need to be practicing doing this. And I'm not speaking just for this portfolio review, because I'm thinking if you're interested in a career in animation or a future in animation, this is the direction you should be going. And there's also, yeah, beautiful rhythm, gesture, and structure in this figure drawing. And this, I believe this student may have drawn on a tablet, but you can draw on paper. Paper is fine. It's really about seeing what you're learning, how you're analyzing and thinking about the figure, the form, the weight, the gesture. And down at the bottom here, I'll just go back to the student's creative work. Here, this is the student's creative work. I can see in this creative work that this student is applying those principles of figure drawing. We see the weight, where the weight is, even though the underlying structure is not drawn, I see that this student understands the underlying structure. So the figure drawing, it doesn't need to be beautiful finished pieces, but it needs to show that you're thinking about structure and dimension, because we turn forms around. Some of you guys may have done turnarounds in some of your classes where you create a character and you draw the character from front view, side view, 3/4 view, back view. Those are turnarounds. That's what we do in animation. So this is just to give you an example of somebody who did get into the program, and it shows this person is analyzing the form. The observational drawings. Now in observational, students will often put things like a still life, or these were observational. They're showing some understanding of perspective. There's a little bit of lighting here. There's probably some other examples too that I don't have right off the bat, but I have another book I'm going to show you in a minute. But yeah, this is all very beautiful observational. This may have been at the zoo where the student is observing, and I see the student is also still applying the construction into this drawing. And again, like creative expression, somebody asked a question. Monsters are welcome, you guys. Creative work, your imagination, push it. We want to see your imagination. I'd love to see imagination and creativity. So yeah, imagination and creativity is great. We encourage you guys to think very creatively here. Whoops, look, isn't that funny? When I put my hands up, it threw a hand up there. I didn't do that, you guys. It put a hand up on me. But yeah, so I'm going to stop share for a minute. And I'm going to hold another book up to the camera here. This is layout and composition. This is going to show, there's different positions. There's like character drawing of animation and then environment and background. So for the observational, we're looking more at your understanding of like accuracy. Some people do still lifes, but they show good perspective. So I'm just thumbing through here. I'm going to find a page to show you guys in this book. Okay.
Kathy, who's the author of that book?
That is Ed Gertner, Gertner, Ed Gertner. And yeah, so these are, sorry, it's taking me a little while. Now, this is super complex. Ed Gertner is a pro. You know, he's been doing this for years and years, and he's a master. But he's showing like some really nice perspective drawing. And hold on a minute, I like lighting. Some of this is nice. Now, sorry, I'm getting the camera. Some of these, like showing a little lighting and observational. Students have shown work, still lifes, that show some very beautiful lighting and an understanding of, like, if there's, I've seen a lot of still lifes with fruit and coffee cups or a coffee pot or things that are very dimensional, and we can see like lighting and perspective in your still lifes. So all that is good. So because yeah, in animation, there's, I've heard it broken down into two major areas, like drawing, character animation, and then environments. And we're going to want to, and they overlap. So the perspective and accuracy and creating still lifes and maybe some lighting, but also the figure part, that construction is really important. And I showed you one example of a student, but if you guys look up like Carl Ganos, as the name I mentioned before, and Glenn Vilppu, you know, things like this, you know, you could put structure. We want to see structure in your drawings. You can put tones, that's fine. Some people put tones on their figure drawing, but we really want to see that you're understanding underlying form. So I hope that helps you guys. That's kind of a big general, and I don't want to, I know there's a lot to talk about for the other applications as well. So I'm happy to answer questions, but that's a quick summary.
Yeah, maybe why don't we do is we'll go into the other two and then we'll do a Q&A for all three at the end.
Sure.
Is that okay, Kathy?
Works for me.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'll go ahead and do the game one if that's okay, Nicole.
Sure.
Okay, so let me just share and then see you guys. Let's see. Game art. Okay, so you'll get an email. So this is what you'll get one for EAA and illustration as well. They'll have these guidelines kind of listed. And it's really similar to the EAA one. And you can see some of the text that we have here up here kind of describing the programs, which you kind of already talked about. And then what we're going to be evaluated on. So demonstration of artistic, technical, and problem-solving skills, ability to communicate ideas and concepts, and passion and commitment to the medium. We've already talked about the number of times you can apply and the unit cap. And then note that so we don't do portfolio reviews prior to the application deadline just because there's too many students. What's nice is the different groups, PMC, WIA, and CGRAPH. A lot of times they'll work with their members to kind of look at it and have peer review with that. Of course, you can always talk to if you're in a class with a faculty member doing this kind of work, you can always talk to them about the work you're doing. Okay, and then the portfolio requirements. I think Kathy did a wonderful job describing observational and figurative life drawing. I think a lot of the things that we're looking for is really similar to what she's describing. She does it really wonderfully. And then when you get into creative and technical, it's going to be a little bit different, and I'll show you some examples. And this is something where it's also it's up to you if you have these things. Like, you don't necessarily need to have 3D work to apply to the program. Not everybody has had the chance to take a 3D class yet. You just have to know that it's what you want to do. So 3 to 4 pieces that demonstrate skill in game art design. So that can be like 3D modeling, digital sculpting, character props, environment designs, animation rigging, game development, immersive, Unreal, coding, scripting. So sometimes we get students that are coders. They might have some code that they can show us. Sometimes they might have some 3D models that they've made, like in Blender. You know, you can always show that stuff. Just and I'll show you kind of example of like wireframe so you can see it. You might have some animations that you've done. Just make sure you link to the animations. Make sure that we can see some pictures of what we're going to see before we click it. And I think that's always a good thing too. And then on the game guidelines, we actually require an artist statement too. So it's 500 words statement. It clearly communicates your interest, and then computer animation and game art. So it's important that you have that in there, because that's something we'll look at. So sometimes we'll read it and be like, oh, this person really isn't, you know, it's not a game person, or they're not a, you know, it's really not the best fit. So it's important that you take the time to go through that process. And then let me stop the share for a second. Open up some portfolios. So second.
Kathy, can you put the names of the book and our authors in the chat?
The Glenn Villeplu and I think, and then the other one was Gersh. I think I put a link to on like an Amazon link to the second one, but I think Kathy can get the other one. So this is an example of Arturo's observational drawing. So you can see in the layout. And I think this also goes to like the EAA examples too. It's really good to kind of be very clear about what each section is. That way we just kind of keep it organized. Also, sometimes students put tons and tons of stuff. It's, you know, it's usually good to show your best work. You can see it's similar ideas of, you know, with the actual like layout and all that kind of stuff for that. And then the observational and the life drawing as well. And then where it gets a little different is the 3D work. So this is a great example of showing both a render. So a render is when you're doing ray tracing and you're lighting it and all that. Not everybody might have that, but this is a great example of showing it in like a nice kind of quick way. We can see it, and then also we can see the topology underneath. So the polygons that go into the actual model. So if you've taken a modeling class, this is something that you naturally do. So that's a great way to show your model. Here also he's got a render, and you can see this one doesn't have the polygons. We can't really see it that well, but it's still pretty cool. You know, it'd be nice to have had the wireframe too, but you can see he's done a lot of cool work with lighting and layout and all that kind of stuff here. And then here he's got an example of an environment that he made. So he's done some surfacing, some texturing. He's got some rats in there that he made, and then he lit it. So he's showing both the polygons and then the render, which looks really great. And then he did another one here. Okay. And then he has some storyboards that he made. So he had this is always really cool. I think a lot of times students think that if they work in 3D, they won't do any drawing. I think it's really healthy if you can do both, particularly at smaller game studios. Like, you know, if you can develop kind of that kind of 2D to 3D pipeline, it can be useful. So this is some really great drawings he did. And then he has an example of the actual models he made, which are really, really cool. Awesome. And then I guess the other thing would be with the game, would be like if you do upload, and also for EAA too, is that when you create your PDF, just make sure you keep it under 15 megabytes. If you have a video file, link to it. Don't put it in the PDF. Like that's actually something people do. It's crazy. So make sure you have a link to the PDF or a link to a video like on Vimeo or YouTube, and then pictures of what we're going to see. That way it doesn't make the file gigantic. So sometimes we can't open the file and then we end up having to not pick you because I can't see your work. So just make sure you open it up on a couple different computers, have your friends look at it, make sure they can open it up too. Eric, did I miss anything there? Any kind of other suggestions?
No, I think you covered it. I was going to speak on the 3D part, but you got that as well. Okay. I would say if you are putting in stuff of blueprint or code, show it working. So do a video of it working, and then you can include whatever screenshot of your code, or if it's in blueprinting, then the screenshot of the blueprint. That would be beneficial.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate, like that's not something necessarily not everybody might have 3D stuff. Like if you have pure creative expression, that's okay too. You just have to know that you're going to be getting into 3D. Sometimes students don't expect the rigor that goes into it. So just be aware of that, but we're okay with it if it's not something you have yet. Cool. All right. So let's keep on going. Nicole, you want to take over?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Hello, I'm Nicole. I'll be talking about the illustration portfolio requirements. Okay, so firstly, thanks for covering most of what I needed to talk about, Annie. That was actually really helpful. Most of you have this already. If not, I'll put it in the chat for you so you can follow along. Okay, these are the guidelines for application. And again, we want to focus on this for now. It's October 2nd at 5 p.m. That's the deadline for your application. This is today. So who can apply? Andy already mentioned all the classes that you need to have completed. And some of you asked during earlier if you're currently enrolled. Unfortunately, you can't be currently enrolled because we need a completed grade on the transcript. So it has to be a class that you've already completed, not currently enrolled. Okay, you can apply a maximum of 2 times. And then what goes into the application process, right? So your TDA, your portfolio pieces, your online application form. There is an interest survey as part of this. We have an in-class assessment that's kind of unique to illustration, which I'll be going over. And then right now I want to talk about mainly how to prepare the portfolio. Okay. Okay, so again, these are the requirements. So preparing your portfolio, this is 20 examples of your best work, 10 finished personal pieces, and 10 sketchbook pages. Your portfolio should be representative of all original work, so no fan art, no master copies. And we're also discouraging you from putting in collaborative work because it's difficult to tell exactly what you did and what someone else might have done. So just original work. Select pieces that show a clear understanding of realism, figure, and imagination. And within realism, we're looking for form, rendering, perspective, color, and lighting. In figurative work, I'm looking for anatomy, gesture, proportion, structure, and overall accuracy. And I think a lot of the examples that have been shown already by Andy and Kathy have really good examples of those things that we're looking for. Imagination, I'm looking for story, concept design, and creating from your imagination, which means drawing from your head, things that don't already exist. Okay, a variety of subject matter, so drawing a lot of different kinds of things, and a good balance of traditional and digital work, no more than 70% of one. Okay, meaning that in your entire portfolio, if you have your 20 pieces, that means that you can't have more than, what's 70% of 20? 14 pieces that are, you can have as many as 14 that are either digital or traditional, but the rest of the portfolio, you need to show a variety of the other one that you're missing. So it cannot be all digital or all traditional. Okay, and mostly show your passion, your interest in your field and where you want your career to take you post-grad. Show me what you're interested in illustration. Oops. Okay, here's a basic breakdown. And certainly you don't have to follow this, but this is a good general guideline for many people that have asked me, I don't know exactly what to put in my portfolio. This is like a good place to begin. With the caveat that you're of course welcome to adjust based on your strengths. So 10-piece breakdown. 2 observational pieces that show foundation skills of form, color, and rendering with a light source, with one of those pieces that focus on color. 2 pieces that focus on live drawing and full body gesture. One of those pages with many gestures, and one of those pages with single full body rendering. A piece that shows skills in human portraits, a piece showing landscape, a piece showing some form of industrial design, vehicles, products, structures, and other man-made things. A piece that shows narrative ability, and then 2 pieces of your choice. Okay, again, this is just a suggestion of a well-rounded portfolio, and whatever you decide to put in yours will be dependent on your skill sets. Okay. So here's an example of what I mean by realism. Work that shows form, rendering, perspective, color, and lighting. Okay, another example of realism, a variety of subject matters. Okay, so these are traditional and these are digital. Some of these are figurative, some of these are more man-made and structural, some of them are landscapes. You want variety. Okay. Here are some examples of figurative work. We're looking for anatomy, gesture, proportion, structure, and overall accuracy. And remember, the recommendation is that you have a full page of gestures as one of your pieces. And then for another piece, maybe just a single rendering of, a portrait or a full body. Okay. Here's an example in color. And then the last part of your work is the imagination portion, where you're showing off concept, story, and creating from your imagination. So these, I'm looking for more narrative focused illustration, meaning there's a story behind the work. We're not just looking at an object, as we were looking in some of these, these observational still lifes. There's more narrative involved on this side of your portfolio, the imagination side, okay? And this, again, can be done digitally or traditionally. It can be figurative based, it can be landscape, show a variety. Okay, here's some traditional work. Okay, here's some traditional work in black and white. And then your sketchbook. Examples that provide insight to what you love. Okay, show your passion and your interest in your field. And of course, you always want to show your best work. Okay, and again, this is recommended basic breakdown. You don't have to follow this, but this is what I would recommend to get a good variety of everything. 30% of your sketchbook should be cafe sketches drawn from life, with cafe in quotes, because of course you don't have to go to a cafe to draw from life, but 30% from life sketches. 30% observational objects or animals that are not figurative, so anything else from observation. And then 30% imaginative and creative sketches that are non-observational, meaning, again, creativity from your imagination. And then 10% just whatever you like. Okay, so here's an example of some good cafe sketches where I'm maybe not necessarily going to a coffee shop, but observing figures and interactions in everyday life. Here's an example of some observational work. Remember the wide variety of subject matter. And then here's some imaginative. Okay. Okay. Interest survey is another part of your application. Short answer survey to the following questions. Briefly explain your professional dreams and post-graduation plans. Describe all significant professional and volunteer experiences you've had as an artist. Pick 5 adjectives that best describe your personality. And there's also an interest portion where you have basically a check off of different fields as your primary interest within illustration. So this is pretty self-explanatory. Moving on to the in-class assessment. So every applicant must take an in-class assessment to be considered. We have 2 dates, October 5th and October 6th. I believe it's 11:50 to 12:50 on campus in Mod 108. You have the information. It's been sent to you, and I also posted in the chat. So the assessment will last about an hour, and it'll consist of different drawing exercises involving anatomy and perspective, thumbnailing, composition, rendering, observational drawing, creative design, and other things. When filling out the application form online, you'll be given an option of one of these 2 dates. So make sure that you pick the one that works the best for you, because we only offer it twice. And if you miss it, then your application will not be considered. Only bring pencils. The paper will be provided for you. Don't bring anything else. So sketchbooks, art books, any other references cannot be used. Your electronic devices cannot be used. I know everyone wants to ask about, I don't know what's going on in the chat right now. I'll pay attention in a second, but usually people always ask like what we're drawing. So a bunch of stuff. In 60 minutes, you can expect to draw maybe 10 to 15 different types of things. They're going to be, you know, I'll also give you a prompt, you know, I'll say like, let's draw a still life of, you know, consisting of 2 fruits and 3 vegetables, you know, show me depth so that they all overlap, something like that. That's an example of a prompt you'd be given. I'll give you narrative based things like draw a story about, you know, a certain object, about a certain animal, maybe in a place of the world, something like that. I'll give you prompts like it's Christmas Day, you know, draw your favorite memory, you know, that will be a prompt. So things like that will be what you're working on during this drawing assessment. Okay. That's it, but I will stop share and answer any questions that you have. So let's see.
Well, you have a couple in the chat. I think the first one was for observational drawings. Can we include, excuse me, can we include anything done with paint?
What do you mean? I need a little bit more specificity. Done with paint. You mean like just painted? If that's your question, then yes. Do the animals and objects have to be from life, or can you reference images? That's fine, either. I probably missed it for game art, animation, immersive media portfolio. Sorry, did you already reply to this? Yes, okay. Illustration only. Reference images during the assessment. Will you be given reference images during the assessment? No. You will have a piece of paper on your desk with prompts on it. It'll be blank, probably with some numbers. And I'll say for number 1, you'll be doing this. For number 2, you'll be doing that. And you'll have nothing else on your desk. You'll have the pencils that you bring and the papers that I give you. How many students can be accepted into the illustration program for this semester? So we want to take as many as we can, but we don't have a clear number on that. So it's dependent on how many people apply and the quality of work that we see in your portfolios. Can I submit small? Okay. Any other questions for me for illustration?
There's a question that I think meant to be by itself, but it's under a reply. And it says, which BFA focus should I go in for if I want to do storyboard art?
I believe that.
The EAA.
Yeah.
There was also a question about digital art or traditional art for the animation portfolio, for EAA portfolio. And, you know, I haven't fully thought about that. So maybe that's something I could consult with Andy also. But my thought is what's most important is to show your best work, no matter what it is, your best work and your thought process and what your understanding is really what's most important, is to show your best work. So I don't think that in previous years we really for EAA gave a specific guideline for whether it's digital or drawn. Do you know, Andy?
No, I think because you never know where the work's going to come from, and I agree. I think it's really like, do you have the skill? You know, do you have fundamentals? I think is the important thing. You know,
in the creative section, creative expression section should hopefully will be fun for you. That's one of the things. It's the creative expression. It can be fun, or just showing your personal vision is what we look for there in the creative expression. So you have a lot of freedom in that area, but it is good to show if you have characters, if you're thinking about like traditionally drawn characters with turnarounds, that underlying understanding of figure drawing, or even if you're working with animals or mythical characters, I'd still like to see a structure underneath there. A lot of these, you know, characters have structure. Whoops, it's giving me a thumbs up now. But yes. So, you know, it's funny, what comes to mind, I'm thinking of Gollum. from the Lord of the Rings, the Gollum, many, many years ago. And that character was so solid. You'd see his rib cage, right? Like Gollum's rib cage. And it was just, you know, so very creative, but there was still a structure in there. So I hope that answers. Somebody asked also about putting in animations and creative expression. That's great. Sometimes somebody has your own personal vision, like sometimes we've had something extremely comedic or something where someone's like, I'm really good at doing these super cool effects or explosions or whatever. And if there's something you feel very strong about, like I'm really good at this thing that I've animated, sure, put that in. But we also want to see still art in that creative section. So if you do put videos in there, and Eric made a point about a link, put links if you're putting like animation or moving pictures. So yeah, hopefully that answers a lot of the questions there. And, you know, put your best, because sometimes I've had students put like 5 links and maybe they're 5 minutes each. Put your best, and if you can show what you can do in a short amount of time on an animation video, that would be very useful and helpful. But sometimes it is something where someone feels like, yeah, I really am strong in this one area. We'd love to see it. But also it wouldn't substitute for still art.
All right, so just looking through, I guess we can open up the Q&A now for any questions for any of the programs here. And there's a couple left here. So is it likely that the portfolio requirements will change from spring 24 to fall 24 for anybody that would be applying? Maybe. We'll let you know, but it should be in the ballpark. I think it's probably not going to change too radically. We haven't really changed it too much in the last couple of years. So and then it says, can I apply to 2 different art majors during this? Yes, you can apply to 2. I spoke earlier, I don't necessarily recommend doing a double down when you're actually doing both, just because there's so much work. But picking one or the other is a good idea. I scheduled a portfolio review for illustration. Is it okay? Oh, it looks like Nicole answered that one. And then for observational drawing, can we include anything done with paint? If for observational drawing is any concentration, we can include any still lives done with paint. Kathy, do you want to take that one? What's your thoughts?
Okay, so I was just answering in the chat.
Sorry.
So what was the question? Can you repeat what the question was?
For the observational drawings, can we include anything done with paint?
Sure, I think so. Some people do really well, beautiful paintings and take scans of them. So as long as clearer is better. If you're going to do something you're working with oil paint or watercolor, just get a nice image of it. But sure, that's welcome.
Cool. Yeah, and I agree, like in game 2, it's like sometimes if you can convey it, it's like sometimes though, if it's really like abstract, like obviously it's not going to convey what the fundamentals, but if you can get that across, for sure it's fine. Traditional artwork, okay, so scan drawings of traditional artwork, okay to put in the illustration portfolio, such as Adobe Scan. Nicole, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, I replied. I said that make sure the image is cropped.
Sorry, my bad. I didn't see it. The Camille. For game art, is it okay to add animations that we have done in class? Can that count towards the animation section? So there isn't an animation section. I'm guessing you're saying the creative expression section, Camille. And that's fine. Just make sure you don't embed the video in the PDF. Make sure it's a link, and then have some pictures of what we're going to see. And then what would you recommend applying for if you don't work well digitally? I don't know. I mean, personally, I think that's part of you're gonna learn that, I think the most important thing is following like what you think you're gonna be interested in doing, like if you're interested in it's like I think that should lead you with your first instinct, I guess. That's it. I think it's Maya, and I think if you want to talk more about the programs, you can meet with us and talk to us more about what you'd be doing, and or meeting with some of the other students in the groups. They're really great to kind of have their experiences and what they want to do too. But I think if you're, part of going to university is getting comfortable with the tools you're going to use, and in computer, like in game, that's sometimes we start with students from scratch with Maya and 3D, so it's part of the process of us teaching you. Let's see. Can I apply to 2 different art majors? I think we already answered that one. You can.
Another one says, do we have to be enrolled in the same semester we apply for the review?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Do we have to be enrolled? Yeah, you have to be enrolled. You have to be here. Can I use previous artwork? Yeah, answer that one. And then it looks like nada. If you do illustrations such as portraits or clothes studies from photo reference, what section of the portfolio should these go in for EAA? So I guess, yeah, you wanted to handle that one, Kathy?
I was just going to say, as a general rule, portraits don't show us as much of what we're looking for as a general rule. Sometimes they can, but a lot of times people might put portraits in, like a painting of a portrait, in creative work. And a lot of times we'll want to see full figure in animation. So portraits can be put in there, but I would recommend maybe more full figure work. If it's a really strong portrait and you're showing like good head construction, then that might go in the life drawing section if you're showing some good head construction. But as a general rule, we're looking at things more full figure. Clothes studies, those might be in creative expression, depending on if you're doing something that's showing more like costume design, which relates also to character design, using clothing for character. That could be in creative expression. Sometimes there's in figure drawing, you could put sketchbook drawing too. Like in your figure drawing section, we do welcome, and I haven't been as strict with like number of drawings and things like that. And I should probably consult with Andy because I'm still kind of new here, but like the sketchbook, if students want to show sketchbook, which is showing clothed people out like at a cafe or at the TSU, I think those could also be good with figure drawing, because that's like you're drawing from life. You are drawing figures that are clothed, right? So that kind of drawing would be good, I think, in the figure studies area as well. I hope that's answering the question, because not if you have something very specific that you have in mind that you want to put in. I'm just trying to give you a gauge of the kind of things that are strongest, and that really would reflect more what we're really looking for. Does that help answer your question?
I think so, Kathy. I was, just like I agree, where it's like sometimes if you just had all portraits and you don't have any, anatomy in there, we can't see it. And then sure, we see plenty of sketchbook stuff. Just make sure, it's the best work, right? So, don't show us stuff from your sketchbook that you're not proud of. Okay, and then let's see, we got a couple more questions coming in. Looks like EAA, do all the figure drawings have to be from life, or can some be from reference? What resources would you recommend? I know PMC holds figure drawing sessions. So yeah, I think that's great. I don't know, the PMC is wonderful for that kind of stuff. You know, I think there's a million places you can go, a coffee shop, you know, go to the zoo, you know, places
Yeah.
that it's going to inspire you, you know.
Yeah, and figure drawing from life is great. It's a different experience from drawing from flat images. There's been a lot of drawing from videos and still images, especially since the pandemic. But I would encourage you to mix it up and definitely get some figure drawing from life in person. If you can find non-instructed workshops to practice, that would be great, because you see things differently when you move your head, and even if the figure moves a little bit, it's a different experience. You're seeing differently. And a lot of times I'll tell students, when you do it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. When you sit there and you actually sit and draw from a figure, as opposed to drawing from a still image, you'll see the difference in how you respond to what you're doing. And so I encourage both, but to answer the questions, I would like to see some from life. You can have some from reference. People do put things from reference, and they can show some good work, but it would be good. And also just for yourselves, if you're interested in a future in animation, definitely try to draw from life if you can.
Cool. And then Nicholas asked for CAGA or game, what are the 3 specific things that I need to submit? So I covered that earlier, Nicholas, but it's the observational drawing, and then figurative drawing, and then the third one is creative expression. And then if you want to later, we'll have a link to the video that we did that you can watch it again if you want to. That it also is listed in the on the portfolio document that you're going to get via email, or you probably already got it. Okay, so then that's a good question. So Mike Calderon, so which program is recommended for wanting to go into 2D concept art? Like all the art of ships and character outfits that you see in art books for games and stuff, like creating machines and weapons from your imagination. So I think that's a great question. To me, it's probably illustration, but also could be an EAA, depending on if you want to animate or not. You know, so the big difference, I mean, there's a lot of differences, but there's a lot of overlaps in those programs. And Nicole and Kathy, feel free to jump in, but like when you're in EAA, you're animating, you know, like you have to make a film, and that's a lot of work, and not everybody wants to do that, you know, and that's okay. And so, but at the same time, in the process of making that film, you have to learn how to do a lot of the things you're describing, you know. So yeah, and also note that if you're in EAA, you can take some illustration classes. In illustration, you can take EAA classes. So you can kind of pick and choose. But my feeling is probably illustration. Okay, Declan asked a question. Ariana answered. Okay, that one answered. Then Reza, will you have any videos showing us how to make a portfolio? Could we make one via presentation PowerPoint? Okay, yeah. So Reza, we don't actually do videos on it, but it's really easy. You could use Word or PowerPoint. Plenty of students do either of those, and then just save it as a PDF, and then upload that document. It's pretty easy to do. And then if you got stuck, you could let us know, and we can help you with it. But
and the clubs also do portfolio sessions where they review and then help everyone build them. A lot of the clubs are built from people that are already in the BFA. I know we is holding one, I think next week. PMC usually holds one, and then I think SIGGRAPH is also holding one.
Yeah, so that, yeah, absolutely. So if you're confused, join those groups. The groups are amazing here. It's one of the great things we have. Okay, cool. All right, I think we got all the questions. Oh, got some more coming in. Life drawing of animation current stylists are more work. I think, you know, Nicholas, so would it be, so, okay, it says, Nicholas Ng says, for Kaga, would it be possible to use your works from Lifetime for animation? We're currently stylizing our work more. I think you could. I think it just, you know, it has to show the form, you know, and then also the anatomy coming through. When you, for the, I'm guessing for the figurative section, I think of it, as long as it has those, and then mix it in with other work that shows, you know, shows that, you know, it's not just specifically from that class. I think kind of that combination would be good. And then Nina asks, in the list of recommended illustration portfolio pieces, it says there should be at least one piece showing skills in human portraits. Should these be realistic, or are cartoons and caricatures acceptable? Nicole, can you handle that one?
Yeah, since that one would fall under the figurative section, I would say that you should focus on the realistic side of it. But again, those were just recommendations. And if you feel like you have very strong caricature skills or cartoon styles, then that's acceptable also. Those are just a list of like a basic breakdown that I would recommend.
Okay, I have a question regarding internships. I mainly wish to work on films rather than games. How would I go about that? Because most animated films are made by big companies. So if you wanted to work like at Pixar or like DreamWorks, yeah, Disney or DreamWorks. So yeah, I mean, so basically what they do is like Pixar does two things, which is interesting. They have their pup program, and that's something that they're looking for students that are like freshmen, sophomores, and it's a great program to apply to if you're a little younger. And then the other ones you can apply to, they'll have announcements for their internships, and you can apply to them during those windows. And then what I think is good is create a LinkedIn, and then on the LinkedIn you can follow the studios and the recruiters from the studios, and then you'll see what their when those things go up. I think that's probably the best time to do that. I'm trying to go to USC after this, and I recently joined Disneyland. I might have access to Disney's art programs. Okay. And then Annie asks, sorry if I missed it, but is an internship required for graduation? So an internship, the internship is required for illustration, but it's not required for EAA and game, but we recommend it. It's a good thing to do. And then Kelly's asking, is the Disney college program worth it? You know, like I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. If you're talking about their internship program at Disney Animation, I think that's great. You know, we've had students do that. It's amazing. But the college program is probably something different. So my guess is that might not be animation connected. Okay, all right. So if you already completed an internship, that one's a little tricky because you need to have take the internship class for it. So that one you probably wouldn't align to that. You probably need to get another internship CC. But if you know, you can meet with one of us to go over it. If there's some wiggle room there, you can look into it. All right, cool. Awesome. I think we're at maximum capacity here, hour and a half. I appreciate everyone coming to hear from us and your interests. And you know, we're looking forward to looking at your work, and we appreciate all the time you're taking and all these questions.
And then recording will be shared.
What's that?
The recording will be shared.
Yeah, we'll post the recording on the portfolio list on the website, and then also we'll try and get the department to email it out to everybody. Thanks, Eric. Cool. All right, is there anything else that we need to add there? Did I forget anything, y'all? Good. Okay.
Just want to say, think of it, you guys, this is a learning experience for you. So this is all part of your education, just doing the portfolio reviews. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing your work.
Awesome. Okay, well, everybody have a wonderful rest of the evening, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Take care. Thanks, everyone.